Hello everyone, welcome to TJ's Lego Room, and I'm gonna call a do-over on the last video. You may actually be hearing my family yelling at each other in the background because it is the middle of the day. Oh look, there is some already. I don't know if you could hear that or not, but it's just gonna happen. We just finished dinner and we started chores, so that's an exciting part of life, right? Anyway, that's part of it's part of being an adult and being a father of children who need to be taught how to clean and how to clean up after themselves. Anyway, that is not the intro that I wanted to share with you. I wanted to talk about how Minox Squadron now has their own little shelf back here, which is really exciting for me. I don't know if you guys care that much, but I'm really excited about it. And the Minox 3 instructions should be coming out this week. This Saturday is hopefully the day I'm going to be showing off the changes and some of the updates and some of the cool things we were able to do, Ben and I working together to show that off. So anyway, let's call a do-over on the announcement of the NASCAR and Star Wars contest, because I seem to have left out a lot. Like I had mentioned in the previous video, I have been working on this NASCAR and Star Wars things for a while. It's been in the back of my head. And because of that, a lot of the details kind of got left back there when I announced it to everybody else. So this video may be a little bit longer, but I hope it gives you a better context on what we're looking for when we do the NASCAR in Star Wars. So, like I had mentioned before, a while back, Shadow Dancer, who was one of my first patrons, asked if I'd be willing to support a project for him. He's actually very prominent here, usually comments on a lot of the videos, so shout outs to you, bud. And he said, what if Star Wars had a NASCAR type of sport? Unfortunately, due to time constraints for me and the plethora of other projects that, my own ideas coming up with, the concept hadn't gotten very far. But I was inspired by the overwhelming support that everybody pushed out for the for the Minox 3 contest. And I thought, who could really help me with this project is all the awesome builders out there. Now, the people who have submitted so far, some of them are really good. And some of them didn't quite land where I thought they would. And I think that's on me. I don't think I totally shared the ideas in my head and what I was kind of imagining for what this NASCAR and Star Wars would be. So the challenge for TJ's Lego Room is that we're going to build a Repulsor Lift racer sport in Star Wars. Now, so what, we're making pod racers? No, we're not. I see pod racing as more of like the Formula One version of Repulsor Lift racing in Star Wars. This is going to be more based on land speeders with specific characteristics that are closer to the consumer level of racing. If you think about NASCAR versus Formula One, you can buy a car that kind of looks like a NASCAR vehicle that has the same body shape, very, very coupe-ish. Whereas Formula One, that's a race car, right? So the idea with these particular ships, we're going to lean towards the land speeder side of it, and they're going to be kind of base model, but I'll share a little bit more about that in a little bit. Now, I know this may sound a little bit daunting at first, but we're going to start with the name, and I actually changed the name since the last video because that name was terrible. I think I called it O-Racer. It was like the Outer Rim Authority for Specialized Repulsor Lift Racing or something like that. O-R-A-S-R-R, O-Racer. But I actually found a way better acronym over the weekend when I actually had a little more time to sit down and flesh it out. I think I stumbled upon the Eraser one pretty early, and I just never revisited it. But I actually have a better one. It's the Galactic Association of Land Speeder and Anti-Gravity Racing, or Gallagher. G-A-L-A-G-R. I don't actually know Gallagher other than the Smashing the Watermelons bit. But I hear people like him. And it's not named after him, but, the name, it's catchy. NASCAR, Gallagher. Also, there's a little hint of, like, Battlestar Galactica, Gallagher, Gallagher. No, I guess that doesn't really work. But, nonetheless, I like the Gallagher acronym a little bit better. I think it's more accurate to what I was looking for, and it encompasses the entire galaxy instead of, like, being the outer rim, which is where everybody puts their stuff, right? Now, each race that's officially recognized by Gallagher has 3 different types of repulsor lifts that that can be used. There's vane type, a VANE, if you're going to be looking for that online. Array, which is ARRAY spelled, and cluster. While each of these have a different method and advantages of arranging their anti-gravity systems, each one is approved for the competitive racing scene in Gallagher. So, one of the things I was thinking about is that this would have started very similar to the way NASCAR started. It was just kids getting together, racing land speeders, or even adults, let's just say adults, getting together and coming up with rules and racing their land speeders. Over time, these land speeders got souped up and modified, and eventually that could have turned into pod racing, because how big do your engines get on your land speeder before you just get rid of the land speeder and just have the engines, and now you're pod racing? So what we're doing is we're going to take that concept of a racing sport, a repulsor lift, like low to the ground racing sport like pod racing, and bring it down to more the consumer-ish level of size of vehicle, so the land speeder size. And I think I totally mislabeled that in my last video, so I apologize. But let's get into the 3 different types, because I had a lot of questions about that from the last video. So repulsor lift vanes use assemblies of microgravity knots that work with each other in a vertical arrangement. So when sorry, I got really close to the microphone. That might have gotten loud there. So when I'm showing you the Desert Skiff, I'm actually not showing you the Desert Skiff. What I'm trying to show you is just the little thing here that's on the back. This would be a repulsor lift vane. Now, not the little antennas here. Those are just little extra little sensors and stuff like that, or possibly even like wind speed sensors, maybe. But I'm talking about a vertical little rudder that's on here, right? So the Desert Skiff is the most prolific of that. What we're looking for in the NASCAR Star Wars is not a skiff, but I'm looking at taking a land speeder. Stay away from the microphone this time. So like here I have the Han Solo land speeder from the Solo Star Wars story, and putting some vanes on it anywhere you want. You can put it in the middle, you can put it on top, you can put it underneath, you can put it on the back. Design yourself a land speeder, put some vanes on it. Right? That's what I'm looking for. They're like vertically integrated rudder-like repulsors. All right? The vanes are ideal for a racer that is concerned with handling and maneuverability. The vertical configuration of those gravitic knots would allow for swift and tight turns, because you're kind of on a pivot point in a lot of ways with your anti-gravity. But it also allows you to balance really well, because the gravity is arranged vertically, giving you many different points of that gravity response. And so it also, the idea for that being maneuverability, also requires very little input from the pilot to keep it in optimal position. So while we are going to be using vanes for the first part of the contest, I did get a lot of questions about the other 2 repulsor lift types, and so I thought it'd be a good time to just go ahead and go over those really quick for you. I'll have some better examples during those phases of the contest, but I can go ahead and show you guys now so you kind of understand what I'm talking about. So we have clusters and arrays. So cluster style repulsors use multiple low power repulsors tightly packed together to get a massive amount of thrust quickly to the ground. If the example I came up with is on one of these Technic wheels with all the little holes in them, and I just put little studs on the one side of it, and so each one of those studs would represent a repulsor that is clumped together in this configuration. That'd be a cluster. The acceleration advantage is due to what pilots call riding on the bubble. The repulsor configuration creates a concentric graduation of strength that increases as you get towards the center. So because of these outer repulsors here, that inner one becomes extremely effective at delivering power to the ground, because these act as like a buffer around that center repulsor, and so it makes it very efficient at delivering that power. And then if you had multiple rings of repulsors, obviously on our land speeders and hovercrafts, we're probably going to stick to something smaller, about that big. But in universe, you can imagine having really small ones all tightly packed together in concentric rings, like a target. And the outer rings provide a small amount of anti-gravity, but to make it easier for the next ring inwards, and then making it more effective, all the way until you get into the middle, but it creates a kind of bubble of anti-gravity around it. It does require really good balance from the pilot, and a later solution for many racers could be to offset their clusters. So have one at the front right side and one at the back left, and try to balance it that way. Or even have a third cluster to create a tripod effect. That could be another option for going forward. Now, arrays are repulsors that are built in a sequence, so in a line. So I use these ingot pieces. I always liked these for the array version. So they're aligned in a single file line and in a sequence, and they can actually take up quite a bit of the vehicle. While they're never the fastest off the line, theoretically they could have no top speed due to their constant feeding off the gravitational fields of the planets they're on. Similar to clusters, each repulsor makes it easier for the one behind it, but instead of trying to be more efficient in delivering power, it's actually trying to push itself forward. So again, maybe not the fastest off the line, but extremely high speeds if you can get a nice straight shot. Another downside, besides the slow upstart, is that the more repulsors that are in your array, the harder it is to turn because you've aligned them in a straight line, and so your efficiency drops off quite a bit if you ever try to turn it. And the more repulsors you have in a line, it can get very difficult. So I imagine if you were trying to break a land speed record, I live in Utah and we have the Salt Flats right here in Salt Lake County, or Salt Lake Valley, and when you go out there, that's where they break all the land speed records. And I imagine if you were trying to do that, you'd use an array, whereas you'd use a cluster if you're trying to do a drag race kind of thing. But again, you wouldn't be able to actually turn. So for all the Gallagher racing crews and their pilots, they got to find a balance on their ship for the length of the array and the ability to make maneuvers as well. In the end, the three types of repulsors create a sort of rock, paper, scissors between speed, acceleration, and maneuverability. That are indicated by arrays, clusters, and vanes, respectively. So, one more time, arrays are for speed, clusters are better at acceleration, and vanes are better at maneuverability. A lot of repulsor lift vehicles in Star Wars also use turbines. Just like Luke's Landspeeder, it has engines that are attached to it as well. And we can go ahead and do that with our builds during this contest. However, I don't want the engines to be the biggest draw for your craft. I would love it if the repulsor type really influenced the design of the Landspeeder, because that's what I was going for, and in the end I just didn't have enough time to dedicate to it. So that's what I'm hoping goes forward here, is that you use the vane in this first part of the contest as the main focus of your craft. Although I definitely think that little jet engines and little thrusters on the ships are not only going to be acceptable and legal to do in the contest, but I would imagine that they would also do pretty well in the voting round of the contest. We can see on Han's speeder that we've got these little round wheels on the back that do that. Luke's Landspeeder has those turbines that are in 3 places on it. So what I've done is I've asked everybody to keep their engines, their jet engines on their ships, smaller than a 4x4 plate, 4x4 round plate. So if you hold one of these up to your engine and it's bigger or at the same size as this, you probably want to scale it down a little bit. The only reason I'm doing that is because, again, just trying to make those the focus of the actual ships. The repulsor lift type, not necessarily the engine turbines that you add to it. So, the first phase of the contest, again, is going to be about repulsors. Your job is to build a hovering vehicle that uses the repulsor lift vanes on their ships, like the Desert Skiff from Return of the Jedi, or even though the Pisana Speeder doesn't actually use vanes, it does have these tall rudders or decorative things that they use on them as well. I couldn't find a good cross-section that would tell me if those are repulsors. If I'm just going off the Lego set, I would say yeah. I would say that there are some repulsor lift stuff in there. But again, that's not official canon. And again, not because of the skiff part, but because of the vane. That's what I'm focusing on. I'm sorry. I did not have a good example for you guys last time. All right. So the ship needs to be minifigure scale and hold one pilot. Droids are acceptable, but they may be removed as part of what I'm calling stockifying the ship. So one of the things we're trying to do here is we're trying to create an initial version of each of these repulsors that people can then modify from that point. So you're welcome to go ahead and build the most colorful and the most tricked out and modified ship that you want. When it comes down to the finale of the contest, I'm going to be stripping down each one of these builds down to what I think would be the stock version that you would buy from a regular store. And again, that's because NASCAR actually stands for the National Association for Stock Car Auto Racing. So even though they're obviously not stock cars, I think the idea kind of sticks with the body shape that we see in NASCAR. And I would love to keep that as we move into the Star Wars version of NASCAR, is to go back, and if you have a droid on your ship, we may remove it for the template that everybody can use to make colors and stuff, but your template is going to be the acceptable one, and we'll have future contests going forward for colorful ships or colorful modifications or extra thrusters or whatever. There's a whole plethora of upcoming projects and contests that we can do to make it more fun. And so this is not the end of this contest. This is the very, very beginning of the concept. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for what ships are going to be the template that everyone will use going forward and use modifications. So basically going forward, people will be using your designs to enter future contests, which is pretty fun, I think. Anytime I see my own builds in other people's collections or people working on them, it's always really exciting to me. And so being able to see your own creation being used by other people, I think is what I would like to share that feeling with you. All right, so again, let's go through the rules. If you saw the previous video, or hopefully I'll have the rules up on my Facebook, TJ's contests on Facebook. I suddenly can't remember the link, but I'll have a link down below that will hopefully have all the rules listed out for what we're looking for. So the ship is minifigure scale, hold one pilot. Droids, you can have droids on there, but again, they may be removed as part of the stockifying process. Both physical and digital builds are acceptable. Your submission needs to be no bigger than 16 studs wide and 32 studs long. Height-wise, I don't really care that much about. Obviously, if it's too tall, I'm going to say, no, come on, we're not going to do that. But there is some variation there, and I think that'd be fine. I don't want to completely put you guys in a box all the way. Because there may be a really cool sail-looking vane that everybody really likes and wants to use. All right, and then the submissions will need to be in by October 8th before midnight. Voting will begin on October 9th. I'm going to stay up late, and at midnight, I'll finalize all the results, write down everything, and put everything out for everybody so that you can see all the submissions, just like we did last time. I've had some suggestions on that as well to maybe clean it up. We'll see how well I can do that. But then the voting will last for 1 week this time instead of 2 days. Hopefully that will also extend people's ability to get in their vote. And then the winner will be announced on October 16th. Each of the top 3 builds for this vane style repulsor lift land speeder will receive an 80% off coupon for my Remarkable store and have their builds enter into the finals. And I mentioned this briefly before, but yes, there is a finals on October 9th. In addition to the video announcing each of the entries for voting, we will begin the second phase of the contest where one of the remaining two repulsor types will be selected as the basis for the next building phase. The second phase will end in November and kick off the third phase, which will end in December. And then the final build phase will have a 1-week deliberation between me and a few of my trusted LEGO builders that I'm in contact with, as well as some Star Wars fans and my patrons, as to which of the designs will make the final cut and become the official templates for the Gallagher circuit. Each of these winning ships will then be taken and stockified and made into templates for other builders to customize into their own racers, like we had mentioned before. In addition, the grand prize winners for each of the 3 categories, which there will be 1 for each category, will also receive an as yet undetermined Lego set. I'm hoping that I can find a good deal on some of them that are, Landspeeder based, but I don't want Luke's Landspeeder. I'm thinking about it. I don't love my options right now. Hopefully something else presents itself as we get closer, or possibly in the new year when some of the new Star Wars sets come out, maybe I can pick something from one of those and send it out, which is actually more of what I'm hoping for. And that's going to be for the people who are in the US, or if you are outside the US, I'll send you an equivalent gift card for what would be my cost. I can't do what I did with the Razor Crest contest again, just eat the cost of shipping. That was another contest worth of money. Of course, this contest is going to kick off in continuing story of the Gallagher circuit in Star Wars, and I have actually quite a few other plans besides what I've mentioned here to make this a part of the TJ's Lego Room expanded universe. I know the contests have tended to get a little bit smaller lately. That's on purpose, because I'm getting ready for a large contest that will be starting in January once the Repulsor Lift Nascar and Star Wars contest ends. Some of you guys already actually have hints. I actually told some people at Brick Slopes about this contest, and I kind of wanted to save that for the beginning of the year. Thank you guys so much. I know this is quite a different and long-winded video. Hopefully it answered your questions, and hopefully it was a little more clear on what I'm going for and what I'm trying to create here and inspire in people. I think land speeders are an underdeveloped part of Star Wars in a lot of ways. I think that there is an infinite amount of creativity, even though I have put you in a 16 by 32 box with making you put little rudders on your ships. But I think there's still a lot of creativity and design out there, and especially because of how shortened the contest is, still ending on October 8th at midnight. I really want everybody to be able to have the chance to have a good starting point and then be able to go from there. So if you've already submitted your mock and I accepted it, it is accepted. There were a couple people, one of the reasons I'm making this video, that their mocks didn't quite line up with what I was looking for as far as a qualified entry. And I did already let them know. So if yours was accepted, don't worry, you don't have to go back and do it unless you want to. I always will accept a resubmission up until October 8th at midnight. So, well, I just made this long video even longer, so I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Get building, and until we see you on Saturday in TJ's Lego Room, play well. Bye.